Aloha, my name is Anna Covert, and I'm coming to you from my battleship here on the beautiful island of Oahu. This week on the Covert Code, the topic is the evolution of digital marketing. My special guest is Lauren Petrullo, CEO and founder of Mongoose Media. With years of experience in digital advertising, she's here to share insights on building successful campaigns, driving business growth, and staying ahead of industry trends. So get ready to get your geek on. This is going to be a good one. Thanks for being here today, Lauren.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me and great job on pronouncing my last name. I felt the Italianism coming out.
Petrullo.
Bravissima.
Yes. So to kick us off, we would like to start off with hearing a little bit about your journey. How did you get into this crazy world of digital advertising and found your agency?
Yeah, cool. So I like to pretend I got into advertising when I was 5 years old. So I'm gonna take you like way back at a time when I really wanted this scuba diving Barbie. And I was 5 and I asked my dad for it and he said, absolutely, you can have it. But how are you gonna buy it? And I said, I'm asking you to buy it for me. And essentially he said, well, you've got to earn the money. You're happy to do it. So go start selling paintings of yours. So I went door to door advertising my future Picasso dreams for 5 to 25 cents a photo. So I was like, oh, I'm good at advertising at age 5. Carried on through that, worked at Disney, where I was essentially just a 5-year-old all over again, but instead of selling paintings, I was selling tickets. And from there, I ended up like really niching into Facebook. I had done advertising for some of the biggest universities from like Pepperdine, University of Florida, and then even like some of the biggest influencers. I got to oversee a lot of really well-known accounts so that after doing corporate and then working for another agency, I got fired.
Mm.
And at that agency that I got fired from, I realized that I don't really want to update my resume. So I thought it'd just be easier to create a job. And I did. 7.5 years later, we've got 19 full-time PAC members. We work with a whole host of contractors, and it's been a blast.
Wow, good for you.
Thanks.
That's exciting. Yeah, it was interesting when you told me about your back when you were 5. I actually also used to sell my paintings but it was
No way.
parents. Yeah, I would have me and my friend Ali Crum. We would make drawings, and then I had like a little sign on my door that they were like 10 cents a piece, and we put all of our paintings out there. And yeah, so it must be a thing for us marketing people.
I love that that's your story. I don't think anyone in my house would have bought it. I have 5 brothers. They could care less about any of that stuff. But I did go door to door, and I by the 5th house or door, it was an apartment building. I went all the way back, and I convinced this woman who I'm sure was like 20 at the time. To me, she was 60. And I saw her empty fridge when she said, no, thank you, and started to close the door. I was like, oh, wait a second. Is that your fridge? Why does it look empty? Don't you want to show off that you've got an amazing grandchild in your life? I was like, you could adorn it with my art. Because I asked her, do you have grandchildren? No, well, now you do. Um, again, I thought she was 60. I'm certain she was 20. But she thought it was so funny. She appreciated it that she learned the story and then ended up giving me the full $20 to buy everything on the spot. So it
Wow,
was like, all right,
slam dunk.
never say no.
Yeah, and door knocking at 5. That's pretty progressive.
I think it was more of like my dad wanted to watch a movie and didn't want to have to watch me. So he's like, go outside. And I went with my friend Lizzie Quinlan. She left me after the first door because the first door were like our Japanese neighbors who like have survived very challenging conditions in California. And they're like, I have no time for this. She's like, oh, I'm too scared. I was like, keep going.
Good
And
for
I did. I came back with the $20, and then my dad was like, I can't believe you did it that quickly. I was like, hello, have you met me? And then he took out pricing for the art supplies that I use. So I learned cost of goods really quickly.
Wow. So tell me, so you're basically a social media guru. How have you seen advertising transition in the last 7 years or since you started your agency with regard to
Sure. Oh man, social's changed so much. Like from a legislation perspective, I can say like that's like a hidden one that I think most business owners neglect. I actually have gotten to go to Capitol Hill. I've talked to senators. I've testified at Congress because there are legislative impacts that are happening that are affecting small business owners that are targeting Metas and Googles and Amazons of the world. But the collateral damage of the small business owners, like in Meta, for example, if you're spending less than 200,000 a month, you are small potatoes to them. You don't count as an actual advertiser. I mean, yes, you do, but not really. And so how I've seen that change is with privacy protection, with your data that's being shared, the data that Meta or other social media platforms like Pinterest or Snapchat are able to use on you is being restricted. So these are free social media tools. So if you say you're in a relationship, but you're not married, advertisers that are selling engagement style stuff or encouraging you to buy your first home together would be able to tap into that data. But a lot of that's been restricted, especially in the financial category, health and wellness, and political. So I would say that's like a huge shift. I think another big shift would be 7 years ago, the number of advertisers on social media platforms were significantly less. It's getting easier and easier every year. Meta, with what they've launched with like Advantage Plus, TikTok, with what they have done with their Advantage Plus equivalents as well, and tapping into TikTok shops and influencers are making it easier for business owners to do it versus having to hire an agency like myself. So I would say like 7 years ago, it was easier to get clients. It was easier to buy attention. You had less competition, but also you didn't have as many tools available to you. So you were doing creative, like you could just make a video or an ad, put it up, and a lot of time it worked. Now it's evolved to you need to get their attention, you need to earn their loyalty, especially when advertising for Gen Zers. Gen Zers aren't really buying so much 7 years ago as they are now. We have Gen Alpha that's entering the workforce. So there are a lot of YouTube millionaires before they even graduate high school, with a lot of discretionary cash. But so the psychology has shifted a lot too, because 10 years ago, Instagram, people were doing ads in the age of like Fire and Khloe Kardashian not disclosing that a post she had was an actual advertisement. Now there's so much more transparency that comes with its own pros and cons. But I would say the biggest is like legislation, and then the creativity required for success are the two biggest things I've seen on social.
Yeah, to stop the scroll. What about your experience with fraud? And for me and my agency, and I wrote a book last year, the fourth published, and it's called The Covert Code: Mastering the Art of Digital Advertising. And really, the reason that I did decide to write the book was because of just how much I had experienced. I mean, I've been doing digital for over 15 years and taught myself. We didn't learn it in school, right? We had to teach ourselves, like bootstrapping it. But what I
School of YouTube.
yeah, what I started to experience over the past 2, 3 years has been this exponential growth of fraud. And it's coming from, Meta, it's coming from Google. And I had clients literally crying to me on the phone that had I been, and just, being able to share that knowledge with others so that they can protect themselves. Because you're right, the small companies are the ones that are at the biggest risk, but really the
Yep.
fraud's rampant for everyone. And, just because you can afford to lose more doesn't mean that you should have to. What are your
Yeah.
regard to fraud, and are you using any specific tools to prevent or to minimize it?
Sure. Click fraud is massive. And I've seen a lot of people talking about AI bots entering the marketplace. And I'm not saying AI bots aren't real and AI bots aren't prevalent, but cautious if you hear people saying AI bots, usually they just mean programmed bots that they're throwing AI in front of to make it sound fancier and scarier, which it can be, but it's not really that well adopted yet. But yeah, program bots to just trash your traffic is a challenge no matter what. There's a ton of click fraud. I think that what we have found success with, especially for social media, because some of that fraud I'm going to challenge and say that it's not necessarily bots or malicious, but it could also just be, it's not necessarily fraud, but it's their wrong fit. So I'm going to bundle them together because at the end of the day, you're getting bad traffic. And what I mean by bad fit is maybe they live in a location that you can't service, or they don't qualify for your product for whatever shape or form, whether it's a credit score issue, it's a financial concern. Um, it They may not have the right body parts for certain products, things of that nature. There's been such an increase of going so broad that you capture everyone in, and like when you go fishing, right? A lot of fishers are only trying to get salmon, but what they're collecting is so many more other creatures into it. So I'm putting it all into that component because I think that rampant increase is partially because of legislative pushback, where small business owners are kind of screwed and required to have Super Bowl budgets to mitigate that. But secondly, what we have found, what we've pushed back, at least on social, we have a client where we do like 4 to 6 push out, like knockout questions to eliminate people. So a lot of time, click fraud will just do the form and fill out the first. answer on every drop form. We'll have conditional based forms or conditional based like in network forms like LinkedIn, Facebook, or TikTok, where we're asking questions that based on their answer, they're going to be automatically eliminated as a qualified individual, or they're going to be asked a follow up question to further see if they are qualified. What we have seen from that is 97% of our leads from Facebook where we're getting about 80%. So we'll have 20% fraud in Google and YouTube. So having those conditional based questions and building in negative no thank you pages has allowed us to do it without bringing in all these additional like click stopping supplies that can be up to $1,000 a month, where we have small business clients that aren't even spending that much in ads.
Right. Well, another one that I'd recommend to you is ClickCease. So ClickCease,
Mm.
only $65 a month, and you can have your entire agency, all your domains on there. And we can do like a 2-week setup for like a free trial. You'll see that in Facebook, we block what it's in it. And here's a caveat. You can only block traffic that's outside of Facebook or outside. So they have to go to your website. Right? So if you're doing the Facebook forms, of course, then that wouldn't work. But for those that want to drive traffic to their sites, if the first click, it can track not if IP is spinning out of a different location than you're targeting. It also knows if there's movement on the page. It records every single visit, so you can actually see what's being blocked. And then while you have to pay for that first click, usually the fraud occurs in IP mapping or like they'll take like a string on the end and they'll add another number. So then everything after that is blocked. So with Facebook, we're seeing 50% of all traffic being saved. And in Google, it was around 30, but now since April, it's spiked to 60%.
Oh, they had a huge core update in March. So I'd wonder if that had ramifications for it. But I know we've used ClickCease in the past, and because it's URL based, when we were looking at it, we would see sometimes like VPNs would be challenging at some of that blocking. So I mean it's still a solution. I can tell you that a data partner we previously worked with, they were able to show those numbers of bad traffic and get refunds from Google and
Oh,
Facebook
yeah.
ads.
Yeah, you can submit it. I mean,
If you get it,
you can submit
I don't know if they're still doing it, but yeah, they were getting hundreds of $1,000s back a month because they were saying what I bought and what you've given me don't match. But I mean, those are $1 million plus ad accounts. So
It's true.
also
It's true. And another thing that I want your opinion on. So what I've noticed in Meta over the past couple years, right, and it's changed, is that before back in the day, I'm going to really date myself now, probably even before 3 years ago, when you would try to do an ad or you would start building your ad, you would see a potential audience size, right, a
yeah.
potential traffic, and potential clicks, and now they don't show you any of that, right? And so then whenever you look, and I have all these different types of accounts all over the country, and when we start to look at actual stats, they all look shockingly the same. And the frequencies around like 1.5, 1.7.
Mhm.
And to me, that seems suspect, right? That all of these accounts, in different industries would all
Yeah.
and one frequency, we both know, being marketing people, that you have to show at least 2 to 3 ads, more. It should be 4 to 7 ads over 7 to 10 days to even get a critical mass messaging, in place. So what are you seeing, and what are your thoughts on the validity of these campaign stats?
So I think like some of the numbers, because of what they can and can't say and how they're protecting it, unfortunately, is going to vary state by state because there's different restrictions of what they can and can't sell. Share. And I'm like literally going back and I'm not trying to make this like political or like legislative based at all because that's not my area of expertise in any capacity. But I know and have seen different state by state restrictions. I live in Florida. Florida has followed Virginia, California, Montana, and there's a few other states that are adding more and more restrictions. So we don't have that same visibility based on certain states you're targeting or certain where you physically are. Like small thing, like if you're in Nicaragua or anyone that's listening that has someone living in Nicaragua registered to your Facebook page, whether they're responding to comments, they're a media buyer, whatever it is, it means you're no longer able to monetize anything on your Facebook account. So there's regional specific ramifications. Oh, I know. It's crazy. So if you
So
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 so lamb.
let me just like recap on that. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then just to kind of preface this for some of the listeners, this is kind of similar. I'm guessing. I mean, you're going to confirm that. Laura's going to confirm. But for instance, in Google, there are some zip codes that have specific regulations assigned to them, and the purpose of those were to protect low income families. For example, where you would see an ad, fast cash or get an early paycheck or things like
Mhm.
that. And the reason that these states did this was because they didn't want people to be in lower income to be, classified or
Predatory.
right, predatory.
Yeah.
But what we found is that, no matter what, I mean, I do a lot of solar advertising, like a huge amount, and anything
Mm.
related to anything with the home or landscape architects, there might not even be any price or offer in it, but they'll still put a block on it, and then you have to request exemption. So we know it's not perfect, but this is
Yeah.
that similar, right? That's the same kind of.
I think that's a fair way to put it into that role, because when you're in a financial instrument, or if you're in housing or employment, you're in a special ads category, which means you can't do a lot of targeting. However, now you can do value-based edits inside of your ad account settings, so you can push more budget towards a certain demographic or age. Just like, that's pretty cool. That came out like May 19th. But what this is there's regional, state, local, federal, national, like whatever the different laws are. And in Nicaragua, they have it where you cannot monetize a Facebook page. And I think I heard there was like some story about like a president who passed it because um politicians, like there was some like OnlyFans creator, someone was making a lot of money from Facebook, and they were like, we don't want this to be a revenue source.
Hmm.
So Facebook has like no monetization for anyone in Nicaragua. So even if you live in Miami, if you live in Arizona, if you live in Canada, if you have someone connected to your Facebook page in Nicaragua, you can get your entire account demonetized.
And we say demonetize, so that means like, so let's say I'm a solar company in Florida and
Mhm.
I run an ad.
Yeah.
And now there's someone on my organic page, not on my ad, but on my organic content, and they're just friends with me. That means my ad won't run.
Mm. No, good question. Okay, so it's, let's say you've got your solar company and you're posting organically. So when you post on Facebook, you can get paid from Facebook for the amount of content you're viewed. So that's the monetization on organic. Similar to how YouTube pays you, similar to how TikTok pays you. You get paid for the amount of content views you see. So you create all this content, you have a video that goes viral, but you have someone connected to your page because maybe they run your ads and they're running your ads out of Nicaragua, or they're physically in Nicaragua with their VPN set up, or whatever that is. Facebook can flag you and then stop providing you any monetization for your organic content that would have given you content paychecks.
Huh. I didn't even know that Facebook did
Oh,
monetizations for content.
oh yeah, oh yeah. I had a friend, she made like $17,000 from one video.
Wow. How do you
Yeah,
apply for that? You have to have a certain how do they determine who can.
there are some qualifications in order for you to be monetized. Like you have to have a certain number of followers. Like with YouTube, you have to have like 1,000 watch hours and, or like 5,000 watch hours and 1,000 subscribers. So Facebook has something similar. Like all of the, actually, I think TikTok's the only one where you can monetize almost like after 100 followers, 100 subscribers. But regardless, there are some checks that you need to do, and then there are some maintain monetization. That's just one of the rules that I know because we have a client that was generating between $4,000 to $20,000 a month
Wow.
just from her reels. And then we had to like, we ended up like changing the company, changing the place of business. Like it became a thing. So that's how I happened to find out about it. But I do know that Meta has had other things because we've been working with ManyChat since like 2016. And whenever, like my husband lives in Italy, so I would go 2 months a year sometimes. Every time I would go, I'd have to remove myself from Facebook pages because if I was in the European Union, and we're using ManyChat for automated messages, I would then make those pages subject to European law. So like it became a thing. A lot of American businesses wouldn't work with anyone in Europe because if anyone is connected to the page from Europe, then you're bound by all European laws.
But
Again, like
are
this wasn't the intention,
yeah.
but legislation affects your social media ads more than I think anyone is aware of.
Wow. And can you prevent? Is there like a way to, with your privacy settings, to say that you will not let anyone from Nicaragua like your page?
Oh, it's not that they like it. It's someone that's assigned as an admin to your
Oh, an
page.
admin.
So it's someone who has access to your page.
I see.
So like another like small example is so GDPR is an email based, like it's a law in the European Union that's on the protection of the information you collect.
Yep.
So in the UK, I'm not a lawyer, this is not legal advice. this is not my area of expertise. It just happens to be the way the conversation is flowing. But there's rules where if you are doing email marketing campaigns, for example, for a client in the UK, now that might have changed with Brexit, things of that nature, and you have a Filipino virtual assistant that's helping write copy, and they have access to the list of subscribers, you are now having to provide additional strengths and resources to protect the person in the Philippines from potentially using the data, because the people that sign up in the UK may not have given written or authorized consent for someone in the Philippines to have access, because it's a cross national or cross international line ownership that the US doesn't have the same compliancy to. But we found out, like, we would find cases that would just come up in marketing news that we're following, where we had to be like, cool, we cannot bring any Filipinos onto any email marketing accounts because we're not going to put ourselves subject to it. France, we don't do any marketing in France because France has their own host of rules and regulations.
Yeah, theirs.
So I don't play. They don't, I mean, they are not allowed to have kids in any ads. Like, and we have clients that do sunscreen. And so if we have a picture of a family on the beach, we can't use that. So I was like, we don't do any advertisements in France. There's a lot of like these small things that for a small business owner, how are you supposed to be able to keep up with all this? I have a separate small business account and I got faced a lawsuit because an individual in New York allegedly couldn't buy a serum from a website of mine because she was blind. And so she said it wasn't accessible friendly.
That's right.
So that was something that like I had to face, and I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Like there's a bajillion and a half different laws. How do you comply for all of them when you're just trying to run a small business? And then you have malicious attacks like you were talking about earlier with ClickFraud, where
Yeah.
competitors do it to you.
Oh, yeah, competitors, and then the big ones are Google. They're clicking their own ads. Meta clicks on their own ads. We know that they do, right? Because we can have a direct link. But one of my recommendations is I love Osano. They're one of my favorite global privacy companies. And so, if you go to like any of my sites, you go to the bottom. There's the cookie preferences, which and then what they do is they're so assured of that they're, because you're right, the rules change constantly. Even different states have different rules, right? So, but when you install the pixel and the code, no matter where the person lives, they will see the correct cookie preference policy for their country or state. Exactly.
And push that across.
Yes, it does.
Oh,
And
cool.
they're so committed that if there was ever a kind of lawsuit that you were subject to that related to global privacy, they will back it up to $200,000 of legal fees.
Which is huge. I mean, going to court alone is a minimum of 6 figures. So it's like writing a demand letter or having like that mediation happen. That's necessary. So Osana is the tool used for cookie preferences, because that was another, like with TikTok, people have like we always recommend add all of the tracking pixels you have, even if you're not advertising on Reddit, even if you're not using Snapchat yet, because if and when you do, you'll already have a seeded pixel that's able to track enough data, because it's a law of numbers, right? You need statistical significance for it to be able to know and mature. And so if we have a client that's spending, $20,000 to $100,000 in one channel, we're like, okay, what are the next 3 channels? We need to bring in those and install those pixels. But if you don't disclose it or don't have the correct cookie policy that's talking about where your data, your website browsing history and all that is being stored, you can be subject to.
Absolutely. And then not only that, but having a clear subject right request form, right? Because now that's one of the big things in GDRP or the California Consumer Protection Act, where and where businesses forget or they maybe miss over it, is this also applies to your employee. I'll give you an example. So let's say that one of your employees is up for you're collecting information. You have their race, you have their marital preference, or they married or not, are they're a he or she or a they or whatever, what is their
Whatever they identify as.
what is their ethnicity. If you've collected that information on a record inside of your business, and now let's say that person's up for a raise, or they're not even a raise, they're up for a new job, right? They're competing with someone else for a new role, and maybe they don't get that, not because of anything having to do with any of those criteria. But now if they decide that they have been potentially targeted for discrimination, they can go and do a subject right request, meaning that depending on the reason, you have to provide all of the information that you have on that person or employee to them. right? And now if you've
Mhm.
collected this information about their gender, about the this and that, now they have a potential lawsuit. So I'm always talking to clients about, okay, well, first of all, like, how are we going to, do we have a data map of where all of our data goes? To your point, like, is there someone in the Philippines that we, that potentially, or even a partner who then is using a third party? Because that
Yeah.
you're also responsible for that, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
where's the data? And if we need to pull the data, or someone has, request the right to be removed, or even just updated. I mean, I'll tell you, even today, in my AT&T account, it has one N for Anna, and I have tried to change it like so many times, and they will not change it. And so that too, it's like, hey, I'm okay with you having my data, but I want it to be corrected. The address is wrong. Someone
Yeah.
deceased. All these different things that we have to be able to store it, track it, and then be able to get it quickly together. But it always leads me to clients asking, why are we collecting this information? Is there a need for us to hold this information? And if the
Mm.
answer is not, then we shouldn't. We should, use this variabilize it.
I love that you're bringing that up because I never thought of it from that protection angle. I'm really big on lead generation, and I think that most people collect garbage leads, and I know that a lot of like, oh, here's ways you can monetize your garbage list subscribers,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, let's squeeze out of juice the people that have already made it clear that they're not into you, right? It's like, oh my gosh, you become the desperate individual chasing someone who's in a relationship with someone else. So a lot of the things that I'll try to do to mitigate that is like, again, I showed you, like, we're asking 4 to 5 questions. We're kicking you out. We're making sure that if you don't qualify, we're sending you to a no thank you page because of questions that we're asking. But every question we ask, I tell our clients, are we going to do something with that answer? If we're not, don't collect it, don't waste time. It makes your lead more expensive. Examples are if we ask someone, hey, what email service provider are you using? If you don't do anything with it, then don't ask. If you do something and then you have more personalized campaigns, if you're like, okay, cool, you have a follow-up question, that's an amazing use of data, but don't collect any data that you're not going to use. Like, I hate when I look into accounts and I can see someone says like, oh, they've lived in their home for 7 years. Cool. Do you have a campaign that specifically goes after people that haven't lived in their home for 10 years yet? Are you doing anything with it? No. Why did you collect it?
Well, yeah, and then not only that, but because I'm 100% in agreement with you, and people like hoard it like hamsters. That they're
Yeah.
my data, and you can't have any. And then
Yes.
well, like now they're moving towards zero click, right? And now with like the how things are moving with search too, but like that zero,
Yeah.
just as easy for me to give you an opt-in as for me to take it away. And if they do, why are you holding the data? There could be a cost to hold these records depending on what CRM you're using, right?
Yes.
There is a cost to send them a text. There's a cost, and
Yes.
there's a cost to send them an email and a risk to your domain and the health of your domain. And God forbid you get enough spams, then you're blocked from your Mailchimp account. Your domain now is has permanent damage. And
Yep.
to your point, I love that. Like they're dating someone else. They don't want you. They're not interested. So let's like get away from this bad practice. It's just this makes no sense.
I love that you brought up the zero click component because I find it challenging right now trying to tell people to stop gating the quality stuff. It's like, oh, I'm going to run a VSL and build a funnel where in order for them to watch this 25 minutes of stuff, they need to give me their name, phone number, and email. I'm like, oh, you're going to call them? No. So why are you blocking it? If they watch the 25 minutes of data, you just ask them for booking a call. Don't collect leads that are maybe going to watch it one day that don't have the time. Just give them the information. People are like, oh, millennials don't have the attention span of anything but a gnat. And they're like, Gen Z is even worse. I'm like, that's not true. No way is that true. If you look at how much people binge Bridgerton, we have attention spans. I just watched through 8 episodes and I didn't pee once. I had the attention span. You just have to own my attention and deserve my attention. So it's like, stop collecting information of people that don't prioritize you. It's like, I'll go back to dating. It's like you're swiping left or right. You're just collecting numbers,
Yeah.
but you're measuring success in your dating apps by how many matches you have versus how many coffee dates are going on.
Well, and what happens then is that you get fake information, so it's like that's the problem, right? And
Yeah.
I see that a lot of people like, also not wanting to share. And it's like, hey, those big good companies are providing that download for the white paper. They're
Yep.
gonna, you access these resources. That's what, and then that's an indicator of they're really interested. You're right. And then it's just if you ask for it at the beginning, we do that a lot. Like I just built a lead program for REC Solar, the company,
Mm.
and our goal was to make like the best lead program ever, right? And a lot of that was, you know, confirming. And so okay, they put their information in to get this result, and then do they want to lead? Okay, let's reconfirm. Is this your address? Is this your phone number? You know, we're gonna mask that submission as well, so that when it comes through and we give it to a certified installer, that they're not going to have the customer's direct number. They're not going to have the customer's direct email. And now we're the gateway to control this customer experience.
Mhm.
But, because it's all junk then. People just give you like and you even see the email submissions like, don't contact me at, you
Yeah.
suck. It's like, oh,
Oh
wow.
my gosh. Those are funny though at times. That's why like I'll ask like I like asking open-ended questions. So we'll like ask someone like, "Hey, what do you want? Like what is it your dream for your child's future?"
Oh, wow.
The longer the answers, the more qualified that person, and also the better the conversation is. For me, it's all about personalization and relevance. And a lot of that is like with personalized ads, being able to leverage data that Meta and Google and other social media platforms make available to you allows you to target a mother with a young infant selling them swim diapers versus a grandfather with no children in their lives that are going to learn how to swim living in Alaska. Like that type of targeting where you don't have to collect that information, but you can leverage the big data that these bigger firms allow has been what made social media advertising much easier 7 years ago. But when you can't have that personalized data because you're in an ad category where you have to do broad, you're in that zip code where you're restricted, or just broad audiences are working best now, anyways. And you're going after everyone. Your creative is then what's curating your audience. You want people to engage with it because it resonates with them so much that they're sharing it to everyone in their little neighborhood. Like, oh my God, if I see anything about a Pomsky, I have a Pomeranian Husky rescue. If I see anything about it, like, oh my God, I'm so dialed in because it's so personalized and relevant to me. And that the follow up, because I've engaged it, if it continues to be that personalization and relevancy, I think with AI, we've never been able to do that as small business owners more. But I think like the challenge is like you just keep going further and further away and you're just asking all these questions that are useless. I'm like, come on.
Yeah, it is interesting. What are your thoughts on now Google deciding to not continue with their, um, the sunsetting of the third-party pixel?
So Meta has been talking about pixels going away for like 4 years. And I know that people were like, oh my gosh, pixels, no way, they're never going to go away. I just think Google is being first to it because they're going to win all the PR. I think it's just like the first to market because I don't think pixels are going to be around in the next 4 or 5 years. It's not enough worth for these different companies. I'm surprised it took Google this long.
Oh, they're not. They canceled it. So they've been trying. So everyone,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. So
I was like, wait,
it's like
what?
the deprecation of cookies. So Firefox, Safari, all of them
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
have been using these third-party pixels for a long time now, right?
Right.
People, we were like preparing for this deprecation, like
Yeah.
for years, and they kept pushing it one more quarter, one more quarter, one more quarter, and now they decided to not do it.
I thought you were saying like they decided that they finally did. I'm like, thank God.
They decided that they're not going to do it. They're like, you know what, nah, because they need it. They need the third-party signals.
Oh, I think the only reason why I would think that they're not doing that is because of open AI and how that's really damaged the decentralization of search. And I think like with them adding, so the recent conference, they talked about how they have like, you can try on stuff now. You can use Gemini to do like live talking to you. So if you're like fixing, I think they were doing like setting up a tent as the example in the release, all those different pieces. I think Google's just in a place of they're desperately trying to catch up to win back the search traffic that Microsoft took with OpenAI. But I I think that was dumb. Sorry. I was like, the first one that like really celebrates it across a multi-platform because like DuckDuckGo is only catering to a smaller audience. Where I think like Apple, I thought like, oh, Google, like you're saying, it's like, oh, smartest move because Apple has been talking about it nonstop. Where Apple has like sorry, not chance, but like demanded that Meta be the villain of this narrative where they've made it so that like you can't track as well with iPhones, emails, your emails if you're using Apple Mail open up on a separate server. If you buy any ads in your app on Meta, so if you boost an Instagram post, you have to pay 30% on top to Apple.
Really?
You're boosting a post from an Apple phone using the Instagram app on Apple, not using Meta or not using Instagram.com in the browser, but you're using the app from the Apple store, they're charging a 30% overhead.
What?
on Meta. Yeah. So if you're even like, there's an ads manager app inside of the
Yeah.
app network. It's only app and they targeted Meta. And then we know with the iOS 15 update, how it was like a massive like declaration of war on Meta. There's just these constant things that Apple is doing where it's in the name of consumer protection. But in the reality is I believe that Apple is going to be the first one that really does this like deprecated cookie only
Did.
first.
They've already done it. It's already happened.
Oh, but like to a bigger extent. Like I'm saying like 10 times bigger because you have already, if you you can buy the messenger number so that your text conversation with Apple isn't blue. It's like a branded one. So if you text Delta's number, yeah, I was like, I just downloaded the Nudge. I don't know how well it's going to show. But I was impressed that this small app got into it. But Apple allows it so that your text messages can be branded. So like here, I don't know how well you can see it, but you see like the name at the top,
Wow.
Nudge. And then even if you're like looking at what we've got here, like it's all branded
Wow.
and it's got a check mark next to its name. So Apple has been doing that. And my assumption is that Apple's eventually going to open up their own ad network because they own Safari, they own Apple Mail, they have your text messages.
They
They're
do have
just,
a DSP in the exchange.
oh,
Yes, because you
for
can
Apple
advertise.
TV?
Yeah, you can advertise through they're on there. They have a DSP for programmatic.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why
Right.
all these big companies. I remember I had a friend who was like, "Why is I don't understand why like Max and all these. Why are they all creating their own networks?" And it's like it's all for the data. If you're under
Yeah.
18, you can't. You don't have any power, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, are you doing any programmatic advertising?
We have a media buyer on our team that's doing programmatic. They're using Trade Desk. It's not a space that I am super well versed in. We are looking at doing Netflix ads though. Because at the most recent ad, whatever their conference was, they were announcing how their DSP has better targeting and like there's very niche content that we want to advertise on, like Bollywood shows, K-dramas, things of that nature. But that's not our strength. We do millions in social.
Wow, that's really exciting. Well, one thing you might be interested in is
Hmm.
the way you can use the Amazon DSP, in conjunction with shopping, right? So let's say we can correlate that. I don't know about Bollywood, but I'll go back to the solar example. That if someone goes to Amazon, they're looking for a level 2 charger, right? That's for your car,
Hmm.
right? I
Okay.
can make the assumption that they have an electric vehicle because otherwise, why would
Yeah.
they be looking for this level 2 charger? Using
Yep.
that data, I can then serve them remarketing ads for solar, or I can play a commercial on Amazon Prime to them.
For that topic based off of what they're browsing in Amazon.
Right. So, but it wouldn't be like for a solar company. So it's like, hey, if you're getting an electric car, you probably then are, interested in solar, right?
Yeah.
You can make a lot of associations, but there's complete access of, Home Depot and I mean, all that Costco, even. We
Yeah.
all of that kind of data. So it's like just the ability to think even grander about, what is that customer's journey and how often are you.
That sounds like 2015, 2018 Facebook advertising when you would do detailed. I mean, I remember in 2017, I had a book of every single group, every single interest, and it was like massive. It was a printed book, and I was like, how did you get this? I mean, listen, there was allegedly a book that allegedly had every single Facebook group and interest that you could target, and it told you the audience sizes next to it, and it was like allegedly like a printed divine text, if you will.
But
Because then you could do some of that stuff, and you're like, if this, then that, and like a lot of successful advertising back then was going after your audience. Now, what's working now is for sure broad, because uh, the algorithm within Meta, which someone told me is called Andromeda. I haven't seen anything else related to it
oh wow.
because I know Meta AI and Llama because they've got their Llama 4 hackathon coming up.
Yeah.
But someone was saying that Andromeda might be the name of their AI advertising. So all the Advantage Plus system. Creative curates your audience. You don't do audience selections the way you used to. I mean, you can exclude audiences, but when you're using Advantage Plus, they're always just suggestions anyways. But I'm thinking like I would go after someone who was interested in Girl Scouts. Because if they were interested in Girl Scouts and they were over the age of 30, they likely had a young kid in Girl Scouts. So I could target that mom more cost efficiently than if I said mother of a 7-year-old.
Interesting.
Or like if someone was interested in outdoor sports, like kite surfing, then likely this is someone that would be interested in boating activities, and we could advertise other water sports type of stuff because it was like a very niche water sport. So that when you're saying like, oh, if someone's interested in a level 2 charger, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's like when you could be creative about finding
That is really a good point. What are your thoughts on the bidding strategies in Facebook? Because I what I always get what I've seen or in but you do much more of it than I do, is that the shorter the amount of time, like the worse the stats, obviously, right? But they'll spend your money no matter what. Like if you have a lifetime budget or a daily budget, right? They're gonna
or now.
spend it. So what
Yeah.
do you like recommend longer budgets or how do you
Okay.
give this?
Good questions. So I will say one thing that's like a truth of mine. After your offer, the most important thing is what data are you feeding back to the algorithm? Your ad doesn't matter, your ad copy doesn't matter, your bidding strategy doesn't matter, your audience doesn't matter. Not until you have the data that you're collecting being fed correctly. Because if you're collecting leads, all leads are not created equal. Some are competitors, some are tire clickers, some are click fraud, right? So you need to make sure you're sending a hierarchy of who's a quality lead back into Meta. With that being said, once you've accepted that in terms of bidding strategy, the next thing is, can you get 50 events in a 7-day period? Like, it's the number. If you can't, maybe you can get away with 25. But if you can't leave that learning phase, it will never, ever, ever matter. With leads, we'll do different because you can do conversion value quality if you're doing inform on Meta, like lead forms, instant forms. You can then do a different bidding strategy where you're actually going after not a lead, but a different cycle inside of your pipeline. But where Meta and where Zuckerberg has said it clearly, like you're talking about a bidding strategy like no one talks about. TikTok has already established this. Shopify Pay, Shop Campaigns has already established this, where you can set your target ROAS, the budget you're willing to pay, and you eliminate bidding. So within the different algorithm platforms, like in Shopify and in TikTok, and I believe Snap is rolling out something similar to it, but Zuckerberg has said, eliminate the need for audience, eliminate the need for creative, eliminate the need for anything. Tell me how much you're willing to pay for a customer and I'll bring it to you. Shopify is just the only one that gives a guarantee
Right,
because
because
you can only choose
that
what you
guarantee
pay.
is because I mean we've seen this in the past, like where the three ways you can buy ads are cost per click, cost per impression, or cost per action, which everyone wanted. But then what we remember what happened is that there was all this fraud because people would submit a purchase and then they canceled it.
Oh yeah, and then you can't track
And there was
and these like,
amount. So people were losing money. So that's when they and established some of those
oh,
rules.
I like that you're saying this because one of the things that Google said, and like there's this big thing where Google is trying to make it so that you don't even have to go to the website anymore to make the purchase. So within the search bar, if you see, you're like, I want this Epcot mug, you can click, you can Ariana Grande it. You see it, you want it, you click it, you buy it. And you don't have to go to the website. You don't have to worry if it's going to load, if it's mobile friendly, whatever. You can buy it directly the way you can on TikTok shops and Instagram.
Wow.
But by eliminating a lot of that stuff, I am mindful that that's going to have a huge spike in returns because it's going to be so easy. And there's like now a really popular like try before you buy model. I don't know if you've seen it happening a lot, but you can buy a product, a full size product. And then if you don't return it in 21 days, then we'll charge you.
Wow.
So that's becoming a like way to mitigate. Oh yeah. Oh, it's scary, but it's also people don't return.
Right. The amount of work and then even if you're buying inside the browser, then well, I mean, of course, there's no remarketing then. We can't really track it, but that's good for Google. But then can you remember where you bought it? Because I mean, a lot of times, I don't know about you, but if I had a couple drinks and I'm like, on Instagram and I'm like, oh, I'll buy that. And then later I can't even remember what I bought. And I'm like,
Boy,
what?
that's my Amazon history. I'm like, keep my phone away from me.
I know.
Oh man. But yeah, so it's really interesting how the different networks are coming together to just compete for attention and make it easier for the buyer to make a decision. But I like think that there's a huge return fraud purchasing that's coming. Because when you're talking about you don't know when you buy it, like what's to say that I didn't lift your credit card from the gas station? Credit cards are protecting the consumer, not the small business owner. Amex, like someone had done an Amex chargeback and I lost $5,000 because I didn't know all the jumps and stuff. Like I had provided the service, all the stuff, but it's just that they're always going to be consumer forward.
Yeah.
So depending on where you are, like I'm based as a US based business. So this has been my experience that like, I think it's only going to get worse before it gets better. And I think that the current try before you buy trend is to mitigate all these returns because then they're not having to do chargebacks. They're not hitting their Stripe. Like if you use Stripe, it's it's like a volume game. So if you're only doing 40 transactions a day versus 4,000 transactions a day, one chargeback can have a lot more ramification than if it's just a 0.5% when it could be 20% of your business.
Right.
Those type of things like are coming into play, which I think like are important for us to pay attention to in the coming days. But like, man, it's so much for a small business owner to keep on top of.
It is. I mean, that even that makes me think about like that same principle with texting. People don't realize, right? Like if if you're depending on where you're texting, like we use like Go High Level a lot for our clients, right?
Yeah, love it.
Or Twilio, and now the rules have changed, right? And so if it depends on how many messages you send a day. So you're so it's the same point that you have is like okay, so if you only send maybe you only send 10 texts, but one of them blocks you. Well, now that's 10%. Now you're shut down, right?
Yes.
Right, but if you sent, 20 if you had, like, hundreds of them that you sent out, only 1 or 2, now you're under the threshold. So it's almost like you need to send more to be able to make sure that you're not under, and then that's, well, who wins there, right? It's not the consumer,
Right.
right? It's not the paying by the transaction, and that's why I think there's so much spiking of this, junk texting. I mean, even just yesterday, I got, like, 3 texts from people that I didn't know with, offers for capital, and I keep spamming 'em thinking like, "Okay, eventually it'll stop." But then I'm like, "Well, maybe not. Maybe they're just like, okay, if we send it to 1,000,000 people, then, we'll keep under that threshold and
It's
we."
a yeah. It's a dating game. It's right. It's like the law of numbers. You're gonna swipe right until you get as many matches as you can, and the first one that replies, you got a date.
The only
But like,
thing from that is that the maybe, like, you can so you're not interested, you are interested or maybe, like, they can recirculate those, like, 2 in the morning or what.
that would be not in the state of Massachusetts because again, it's a state by state difference. So like, you can't send in Mass. And again, not a lawyer. It's not legal advice. But what I remember coming across was you can't send 2 text messages in 24 hours without a reply. And like, I'll get a lot of things to overcome that where someone's like, hello. Or they'll ask me a question like, I don't know who this is yet. You didn't establish who you were. But what is going to come is continued like legislation is going to try to help the consumer. But these are, you know, predominantly men in office that aren't using social media, that are like, oh, I hate that I got this 2 text messages, but doesn't know that some small business owners are using it because people have opted in. But it's going to come to the bigger thing is like you said earlier, I don't know where I bought that from, which means when they bought it from Google, did they opt into your marketing? But if they don't remember because they've never been to your website and you start sending them emails because they don't remember you, they bought a cup. They could care less that it came from this is Disney directly. No one cares.
Well,
They
well,
just
that
bought the
that's
product.
one of the big problems. They were supposed to have that one-to-one consent was supposed to take effect this January, and then they pushed it,
No.
right? And that was, so if you go online, let's say you fill out a form, right?
No.
And at the very, very bottom, there are terms that you're opting in. And what the problem was is you're like, okay, but then there was a little link and it said, you're up by like agreeing, you also are opting into all of our partners. And there was like
Yeah.
5,000 million sites on there, right?
Yeah.
That's why you're getting all this stuff. But then, then they said, okay, the FCC said that no, they can't do that, only 500 at a time. And then they're like, no, if it's for, one-to-one, for home services, for instance, you have to actually opt into that company. And so we were using what's called sit back. So we would say, okay, if it's like a lead service, I want a lead, and then they pull the company's logo in, and then you're opting into that company. So I was really excited.
Okay. Yeah,
I
because
was
like as a lead broker, you're like,
right.
hey, I need a plumber near me, and then all of a sudden you have like 15 phone calls. You're like, whoa.
Exactly. So this would have been like, okay, then they're no, and you could do up to 3, but you'd have to see the logo and then so we were all these lead providers were getting ready to push it live, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a dream, because we'll get better data. And then they said they were going to move it to next year, and now they've canceled it. Yeah. So
Dang. I was like, this is great. But
yeah.
at the end of the day, it's just you like what I'm hearing or what I'm understanding is that as a brand, you have to develop a personalized relationship with everyone in your database.
Yep.
And then the personalization, though, should not be like, I know everything about you. I don't need to know your horoscope, what gender you identify as, any of that stuff. But I do want to have a personalized relationship of where you are with my brand and where you are in your customer journey. And like a small thing of that is I like to do like the way that everyone does like a welcome series when someone signs up as a new customer or signs up as a lead magnet kind of thing. People do like 5 to 7 emails onboarding them. The first email in most people's series, I have 27 potential emails that may be getting.
Wow.
So I do this like whole proof of life thing where I'm like, I'm not providing you any information unless you show me proof of life. I'm essentially knocking you out of my CRM and I'm tagging you as a subscriber and then you're dead weight to me. Because if I don't get proof of life in a click or a reply, I don't need you in my ecosystem. I can tell you why my brand is good. I can tell you all these other things. You downloaded this like 16 ways that you can save money by using solar on the Big Island lead magnet, but you didn't click on it once. I don't think you're actually real. You're not serious. You could be click fraud. You could be whatever. So I'm going to send you, I'll write 3 emails, but I'll send you resend twice, cycle it through. Essentially, so you could potentially get 27 emails and 5 text messages from me, where if you don't click or reply once, then I boot you out of my system.
Wow.
Because you have shown me in your relationship with me as a brand, you don't actually care.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make matches. I'm trying to do coffee dates. I'm looking for marriage, not for a swipe.
I like that. I like that. Well, Laura, this has been so exciting. Thank you so much for being a wonderful guest. I loved geeking out with you today.
Oh, I appreciate this so much. I'm like, oh my gosh, these are conversations I rarely get to have with.
I know, it's so fun. And so people can, if you are interested in finding you, it's just mongoosemedia.com or
It's mongoose.media.
mongoose.media. All right. Well, and then you're on LinkedIn. And for for all my listeners, please join me next week as I interview another industry expert and topics to help you succeed on and offline. And I'll see you in the pixels. Aloha. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Covert Code podcast. To stay up to date with all our future episodes, follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means everything to us. Please take a moment to leave a review and share our content with your friends and colleagues on social media. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more digital innovators like yourself. See you in the pixels. Aloha.